Hi, I'm Angela Hall. Welcome to my presentation, From Confused to Confident, Your Research Transformation. Um, I am a librarian at Valencia College, and that's part of the reason behind why I chose to do the lesson the way that I did. So this class or demonstration, or I'll say lesson plan, could be implemented with any library instruction course or even your own course. But it is for anyone requesting library instruction. The class I chose to do this with is AMH 2020, U.S. History 1877 to present. The modality for this course was face to face. And the objective was just basically to transform the students' research skills from confused to confident. Now, the essential competency that I apply that was used for this particular lesson is the learning centered teaching strategy. The outcomes were to demonstrate for students to demonstrate active listening, participate in the library discussion, access and use the library databases, and develop keyword-based searches. And so, for me, as a librarian, I there's really no way for a student to learn effectively how to use the library databases other than diving in hands-on and doing the work. And I'm not particularly one who likes to lecture, and I really want the feedback and interaction with the students. The active learning theory that I applied to this lesson is the adult learning theory. The reason being, a lot of our classes at Valencia College are not just students, made up of students who are coming straight out of high school. So we have, you know, your non traditional students, some older students. And so just to help them, I try to meet them where they are in their learning. And so that means that I adapt the material such that it's relevant and that the activities are engaging and that they're hopefully walking away with a memorable experience. There are a variety of emotions involved in learning, especially for a student who may be returning back to school after being away for several years. And so part of that is for me to try to make the student feel as comfortable as possible, creating a safe space for them, but also to make the experience of learning the library databases relevant to their personal goals. And a lot of times those personal goals are to advance and move on to study at a four-year institution or higher, another institution of higher learning. In addition, giving students the confidence to do the work, to work in a self-directed manner and hands-on, and really knowing how to analyze the problems and break those down and implement different strategies or search strategies in the process. Now, there is no requirement for this lesson or library instruction, but it does help to have some basic skills. And some of those basic skills I've categorized in three areas: information literacy, research, and problem solving. And as you can see, under information literacy, we just have basic computer skills, turning on a computer, typing on a keyboard. We do that every day with our phones, which, I remind students that their telephone is a computer. However, I also remind them that it is better if they have a laptop device to use in the class. But in addition to those basic computer skills, they just need basic information literacy skills. And also being able to collaborate and communicate with others, because sometimes group work is a necessary component of being in college. The other category we have is research. So just being students need to be familiar with the basic research process. And a lot of times when I ask students what their go-to research source is, they always say to me that it is Google. Now, I don't beat them up for that. However, I do tell them my purpose in this lesson is to introduce them to more credible resources for the research process. In addition to that, I'm teaching them, how to understand the differences between the different source types, and most importantly, knowing when to ask for help. And then lastly, we have the category of problem solving. And in this category, Students should bring a certain a minimal level of problem solving and critical thinking. And I think this is something that we're always trying to develop and grow in our students on their along their academic journey, and that's to develop their critical thinking skills as well as problem solving. But they also need to be self-directed and motivated. That can be a challenge, especially when you're doing the work in a Canvas or learning management system on your own, and just kind of motivating yourself to do the work and get it done. Now, um, the active learning strategy that I chose to use for this particular lesson is um, a scavenger hunt. Now, you may be saying, well, how does a scavenger hunt work with library databases? But I can assure you that it does. And so there are 3 steps to this strategy in general. So the first step was learn and practice. And so that meant that uh, I introduced them to the library database and showed them how to access and use the databases, as well as develop their search strategy using keywords. And from there, we moved to the scavenger hunt. And that scavenger hunt was based on the unit of study that the course was doing. But I connected it to the library databases such that they would need to use the library databases to find the clues of the scavenger hunt. And then there was an opportunity for reflection and sharing out through the metacognitive wrappers, and just getting them to think a little more deeply about the research process and what worked and what didn't work. And I explain to students all the time that research there's not one answer, one definitive answer to research. There could be many answers and many conclusions. And so I encourage them not to get frustrated with that process. Now, the way I approached this in terms of the live demonstration was I did it a scaffolded approach. And so of course, the first step is to access the library databases and show them how to do that, but also how to use the keywords effectively along with the Boolean operators. And so many times students don't remember or understand how to use those key Boolean operators and not, or. And just using those and incorporating those into the search strategy can significantly change the outcome of the search. And then I also show them go through steps and showing them how to refine the search using some of the built-in filters within the database. So that could be narrowing it down by source type. It could be narrowing it down to a particular date range, or even searching for articles by a particular author. And so once we did all of that, we applied this learning to the scavenger hunt. And again, the way that was done was I created some clues based on, and we'll see that later, but I developed some clues and they had to use the databases in order to get the answers. Now, they could have easily been using Google, but I was monitoring the class the whole time as well as the course instructor. So they were using the database. And that was really just that hands-on independent practice proved to be very instrumental for them. And then once we were sharing the answers to the clues, this was an opportunity for them to reflect and to share what worked well with the databases and what they learned about using the databases, things that they probably didn't know before. Now, for this particular lesson, I did incorporate or use all or metacognitive wrappers with all 3 stages of learning because I saw all of these being applicable to my lesson. So I did use planning, monitoring, and evaluating. And with that, for the planning, the wrapper was what keywords will you start with? And so often this is a challenge for students because they are thinking in the form of a question. And one thing I explained to them is that databases do not respond to questions. Databases respond to keywords and Boolean operators. And so getting them to think about the keywords that they were going to use and why they were going to use those words. And then monitoring them. So that was me after my live demonstration, they had an opportunity to do independent practice. And so just asking them what they were learning about the strategies they were using, what words were working well and what wasn't working well, and what kind of results you were getting. And then the last part was evaluating. So once you've done that and you've executed the search and you see the results, So you may feel like you need to tweak things a little bit and do it differently. So um, just finding out if students are more confident in the quality of the research that they were finding. Now, um, in my past library instructions, before taking the uh, active learning certification courses, I did not do assessments. I am ashamed to say this. But I also worked in a K 12 environment prior to coming to Valencia, and so I didn't have to do that. However, I do realize the importance of the assessments to determine student understanding. So, a couple of things that I have implemented in my library instructions is the say something cards. So these are cards that I give to students at the beginning of the class, and it just gives them an opportunity to ask questions or make a comment about something I said or did in the class. Um, it also serves as an exit ticket, but I used it in such that they had to surrender it um, during the class and not wait till the end of class. And so after having gone through this, I'm rethinking that a little bit differently now. So I also use these red light and green light cards. And so I use these to check for student understanding. So if a student doesn't understand or I'm going a little too fast in the instruction, I ask them to put up the red card. So that signals me to stop. And the beauty about this is that not if I miss the red card, other students are watching for the red card as well. And so they help me identify students who still need help. And that green card simply means we can move forward with the instruction and they understand and they're able to keep up. And then here we have the scavenger hunt clues, and you can't see this really well, but there are three different categories, historical categories, and the students had to work in groups of twos or threes, and they were able to work together and answer these questions. And I only gave them a 15-minute window to answer the questions. And I like this activity because students were engaged, they were laughing, they were working together, they were sharing their results, and even the instructor got involved with the scavenger hunt. Now, some of the feedback and outcomes that I received from the course professor was that students, I definitely know, and the professor observed this, that the students had a better understanding of the research tools. In addition, it was clear that they had more confidence using the library databases. But one thing that the course instructor said was that the students continued the discussion even after the session had ended. And so it went into the next time the class met. So that was a good thing. So they were hearing it, and now they know this is a very valuable resource for them to use. So I graded myself. So what grade did I get in the areas, that I did well in, and where was I struggling? Where do I need a little more improvement? So one advantage that I have, and it's rare for librarians, I do have a full class period, which allows for deeper learning. And so I'm given that full class period most times in all of my classes. So because of that, and because I'm generating deeper learning, I guess, I gave myself an A plus. Again, I don't get a 15-minute window. I get a full class window for my instructions. And then the other area of active methods, which equals more participation, I gave myself an A plus. However, that could be kind of a double-edged sword because I have too many activities, and that's one thing I find that I have a little too many activities. So I'm going to scale back and maybe not do both of the say something card and the red light, green light cards. I don't think I need to do both because they kind of serve the same purpose. I do need to streamline the feedback tools, as I stated, and that would be the cards. But I tend to also do a lot more activities than I should. But I really want to make sure students are engaged, that it's not a boring instruction, something they can really connect with and retain and walk away with. Now, one thing is, so I gave myself a B minus in that area. Now, in the area of allowing more time for discussion, I gave myself a B minus only because the number of activities that I have kind of limit time for fuller discussion, although students are able to give me some feedback. I gave myself a B minus. I need to work on, I guess, better pacing and maybe not have as many activities. Next, I need to use the Say Something card a little bit differently if I'm going to use it as an exit ticket. And I think what I need to do with that is have a written reflection wrapper that they can respond to in one sentence or two. And that way I have something more concrete to measure their success. And so I gave myself a B minus in this area. And then for implementing a survey for continuous improvement, and this is for my benefit, and this is something I need to get better at and to do. And I don't do this all the time, but to develop a survey just to see how I did in the I guess the execution of the lesson, what the students liked or didn't like, so I could work on improving. And so I gave myself a C because I'm inconsistent in this area. Now, that does conclude my presentation. I am Angela Hall, your downtown campus librarian. Here is my contact info if you all need to reach me. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to present.